Hey, what's up? This is the I Don't Know What I'm Talking About podcast. And today this is a Lynx versus Mercury Edition. Which just happened June the 3rd, 2025. The podcast probably won't get up till June the 4th, early in the morning, or late at night. But, this is when I'm doing it late at night, June the 3rd. So I'm going to talk about the Lynx Mercury game that just happened not that long ago. The Oklahoma City Thunder center and Alcaraz and Arthur Rinderknech. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. But center's first round matchup. Alright, so the Lynx versus the Mercury. I thought it was a blowout, but it was an interesting game. For a lot of the game, it was within, or for maybe about 2.5 quarters, it was within striking distance for the Mercury. I was really impressed with the Lynx. I was really impressed with their ball movement, impressed with their ability to break down people off the dribble. So I was really impressed with their guards and Williams and Heidemann, and I'm impressed with Collier. She was good at finishing down low. Let me see. Trying to see who number 21 is on Minnesota. They have size. Like I said, they have the ability to get to the ball. They have the ability to drive the ball to the basket. I think they defend pretty well. I actually thought overall Phoenix was the better defensive team today. But I think Phoenix had some good players too. And I didn't know that they had Haley Jones, which was she was at the Atlanta Dream last year, and she's a good player. Her lack of a jump shot or a consistent one, kind of hurts her sometimes if people play way off of her. But she's still a good player. And I thought they moved the ball around decent. I think they just ran into a better team, and they got to find ways to, up the level of their team to beat a team like Minnesota. Minnesota's tough, real tough. I think McBride was the guard that was really good on the Lynx. I actually thought she came out the bench. I missed the very beginning of the game. I thought Heidemann started, but she didn't. But Minnesota's tough, I saw I think they could be a contender this year, and I think Phoenix can have a good year too. As they both have good records. Lynx are 8-0. Phoenix is 5-3. And Phoenix lost a lot. They lost a guard to the Las Vegas Aces, Brittany Griner, Diana Taurasi. I think they were all on the Phoenix Mercury last year. But they got a solid team. And I don't know, but the Lynx look really good. Courtney Williams, I believe. she's really tough. Her ability to get by people. I know they were talking during the game that I saw it on. Some of the stuff during the break was talking about how great her pull-up jumper is, and when she does the pick and roll with Collier, how dangerous that is, because you can't focus on either. Or focus too much on either. You have to make sure you're guarding both with your pick and rolls and hedge and recover, or blitz. You have to have another person help on Collier if you do that. They got a tough team. Like I said, they move the ball around well. I want to say Samuelson, if I'm not mistaken, was from Indiana last year, and she's a good shooter. So I think that was a good find for Minnesota. And yeah, like I said, it was close for me, about 2.5 quarters, if I remember right. And then the fourth quarter, they finally put it. Or third quarter, they finally broke away. I didn't think they were 23 points better than Phoenix, but they're definitely better than Phoenix. But Phoenix has a good team. Sabalai, they have her running a lot of point guard, and I think she can do that. I wonder if they kind of should get her down low more, because she can get by people, but maybe not at a high enough rate where she should be playing point guard. But they have a solid team. I think both these teams could be solid this year. Phoenix was very good defensively, had a lot of steals. I think Minnesota had 23 turnovers. So that was a lot, especially in a 23-point win. Compared to Phoenix only had 10, even though Minnesota was active in the passing lanes and stuff like that too, but Phoenix was more active. Minnesota seems like they have a tough coach that coaches them hard defensively, and offensively they run a good offensive system with, cutting and screening and movement. You have a lot of shooters outside, and she seems like she gets on the players and holds a tight ship, holds them accountable. So I think they could be a good team. Phoenix, I know Haley Jones went down with an injury. Someone else went down with an injury, even though Haley Jones came back. Well, she had blood on her nose. I don't think it was super serious, but she came back with a mask. And someone else had an injury. I heard the announcers saying that they've had a lot of injuries. So maybe Brittany Griner is hurt. I didn't know that if she was. But they've been struggling with injuries, so maybe when they get healthy, they'll be even better. But, it was a fun game to watch, even though it was a blowout, and, look forward to watching both of them later this year. Oklahoma City, this is the second topic I got. People, I haven't watched a lot of First Things First, and to me, I think Oklahoma City is very beatable in this upcoming series against Indiana. I think Indiana defends better. I think they move the ball better. Even though I think Oklahoma City probably has the two best players in the series, in Shea and Jalen Williams, I still think Indiana plays better at it as a team. The way they move the ball side to side and get those screen and rolls going, and McConnell, when he comes in the game, how he changes the whole game. They already play like the fastest team, and he comes in and raises it up at a level. Thunder, I think they're a good defensive team, but I don't know about them. I think they have great individual defenders, probably better individual defenders than the Pacers if you just put them on any team. But collectively together, everybody that's out on the floor for the Pacers defends hard, defends physical. They're athletic in their stance. They cut people off, they bump them. The Thunder aren't doing that as much to me. They're good defensively, but you got players like Holmgren, you got players like Hartenstein, who's, I like the double big lineup for them. But they're not putting the type of ball pressure that Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam are, or Thomas Bryant, or Tony Bradley comes back. The bigs of Indiana do a lot better job defending. And I would even say the guards too, but especially the bigs. They're just more physical, they're more active, and they pick up full court better to me, Indiana. So I would have Indiana as the favorite going into the series, but I've been wrong many times before in the playoffs this year and in general. But in the playoffs this year, you just go back and look at my playoff bracket. So, I don't know. To me, I have Indiana going in as the favorite, but like I said, just listen to first thing first. I know Chris Broussard said they're like the Spurs. They're going to have an all-time great season, which I know statistically they had 68 wins. They have an MVP scoring title champion. I think 2 players on All-NBA teams. Shea, I want to say Jalen Williams. Lou Dort's all defensive. But if you just watch the game, I think they're very beatable. Denver, who has a lot of flaws, took them to 7 games. I know Jokic is really great, but took them to 7 games. I think that Memphis series would have been closer if John Morant didn't get hurt, and Minnesota, didn't show up like they really should, especially Game 4. That was really the one that maybe it's 2-2. What goes from there, but I don't know. To me, I just don't see them as an all-time great team, caliber-wise. And, I'd have to go and watch the all-time great teams to just see how they pop off on film. But to me, Oklahoma City is very, very beatable. And not that they can't win. Obviously, they can win. But, I've heard, 88% and DraftKings and Nick Wright gave them 80% chance to win. I don't see that. I think it'll be to me, I would pick Pacers at 6, but Pacers are really good down the stretch. I think them and the Knicks, those are 2 really good teams down the stretch, and the Pacers won, that game 1 down the stretch, which is huge. But I think it'll be a good series. All right. Sinner and Alcaraz, number 3. It seems the last 5 majors have been won by either Alcaraz or Sinner. Sinner won Australian, US, Alcaraz won Wimbledon, French Open, and Sinner won Australian Open before that. I think Djokovic won the US Open before that. He's the last person that wasn't those 2 players to win a major. And they've both been playing at an incredibly high level. You look at Sinner in the quarterfinals, Alcaraz in the semifinals, and it was Sinner in the round of 16, and Alcaraz in the quarterfinals. And they both took down 2 solid players like it was nothing, at least for the first 2 sets. In the third set of both of those, Rublev and Paul stepped up, but, I saw some player, I think it was in the last clay tournament in Rome, I think, saying Sinner's like a wall who's, hitting 100 mile per hour balls right at you. And then Alcaraz, I've heard, someone told me that Mary Jo Fernandez said that Alcaraz looked even a level up from Sinner. And, I think, I had Alcaraz beating Sinner at the end of this tournament, and I think if it gets to that, it'll just be a great match. And, I don't know how many majors these 2 are going to win. They're constantly improving, getting better. I think Sinner's, hitting it harder every time you see him, moving around better. Not that he's not great at those things, but I feel like sometimes he can be outmatched at those things. I feel like I underrated because he's one of the best at those things probably. But there's still guys ahead of him at those things, but he's just so tough. He pulls it out. He's just great at volleying. Just get it over the net. And he has a great forehand. And, and then Alcaraz, I think Alcaraz just covers the court better. and he's better at the better shot maker. And, I just think that'll be a great match. If they get there, I got Alcaraz. And, I don't know if these are going to be like two of the people, like we just had those 3, 4, if people count Andy Murray. I know they said, I didn't really keep up with tennis back then, but they said he went through a lot of injuries. But Nadal, Federer, Djokovic having all over 20, maybe these two could do something similar. Obviously, I think the next highest is like 14 majors, or at least that was before those 3 came along. So nothing like that's ever happened in tennis, but in the men's side. But, maybe these two will win a lot of majors for a lot of years, maybe dominate the sport possibly, both playing at a super high level. Centers, I think Bublik is a really good player that he's going to have to go up against tomorrow. He was hitting drop shots really well against Draper. And then, Alcaraz is going to have to go up against Musetti, who's solid, hits the ball hard. So, yeah, I just want to talk about really the 2 top players in tennis right now. I think, talking about, are they going to win majors for years? I think maybe a guy who jumps in there and maybe wins some is, I think Shelton eventually. He got a set off of Alcaraz. He lost the first one, which was tough. I think in a tiebreaker. And, so maybe he's someone that can come through and win some majors. But, right now, you'd have to say those 2, or one of them has to be the favorite going into probably every major, I would think. So, they make it really interesting to watch. Fourth topic is Arthur Rinderknech, and this was Sinner's first round matchup. I just want to talk about him because I thought, he felt like I've never seen him play before. This is how the announcer said it up, at least. Felt like he had to raise his level since he was playing someone as good as Sinner. So he just started hitting it as hard as he could. A bunch all the time, and the accuracy wasn't always there, but it wasn't bad. Like, I feel like his accuracy was sustainable to win some tennis matches. And serves, forehands, he was just going for winners all the time. He wasn't trying to volley, he was just trying to win. He knew what he was up against with Sinner. So he was putting tough shots over the net all the time, and I thought it was a really good match. And I just thinking, maybe I don't know how old he is, but, maybe in the future, if he keeps getting better and maybe sustains that level of play that he felt like he had to play against Sinner, maybe he can be one of the top players. I think. I think a lot of people. He's 29 years old, so he has time. I think he was 75 ranking. They said right now, something like that. When you're an athlete, sometimes it takes playing super high competition for you to get better because you have to sustain a level against them that you wouldn't having to play lesser competition. And he's played other top players before, but it just seemed like, according to what they said, he took a leap. And out there, I think a lot of times when you see these lower seeded players, they're just physically outmatched. Sometimes I think like how Tommy Paul looked, and he's not even lower seeded. Like I was talking about, like Rinderknech is 75. I'm talking about like those players, but even Tommy Paul going against Alcaraz, I know he had an injury. He just didn't hit the ball as hard. He didn't cover the court as well. His shot making, he's just overmatched in so many ways. You know, I didn't watch this match, but I've watched Gasquet some, and I've watched Sinner. I'm sure Gasquet was overmatched. You see someone like Rinderknech, he wasn't really overmatched by Sinner. He was actually hitting it harder than Sinner. He could hit winners. He had margin for error because he could do things that Sinner really couldn't deal with in some ways. If Sinner is all the way on one side of the court, he hits a winner as hard as he can on the other side of the court. That's hard to get to. You know, as someone like Gasquet can't really do a whole lot. As far from what I've seen, where Sinner's like, oh, I can't return that back. I mean, he's just got to keep volleying, and hopefully something goes right. And I just think with someone like Rinderknech, the way he was playing, if he keeps and sustains that level, he could be a great tennis player, because if he goes against these great players, he has enough talent, enough strength, enough hitting power, shot making, to where he has a margin of error. He can make mistakes, and he can still be in a tennis match, even though he made too many to be. I don't think he won a set. He was up 4-0 in the third set and blew it, lost 7-5. But he has enough margin of error against top guys to make some mistakes and still win, which I don't think you could say that about every low seed that challenges a high seed. So that's it. That's the podcast. This was Lynx versus Mercury podcast. That was probably a small part of it. But yeah, probably try to watch more WNBA games. I'll always try to fill in topics after or before the WNBA game we're going to talk about. So I tried talking about it first this time. I usually talk about it in the end. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you for listening anyway that listens, and have a good one.